You like my photo?
Yeah, but I don't know if it's from China or something. I don't know.
It's from Burma.
Uh-huh.
Okay, we are live on Facebook. Excellent.
Yeah, nice.
So, John Farrell here. I'm the host of the podcast, The Thinking Part of Life. Let me just get myself set up. There's so many. This is the problem, Marita, when you have two screens. There's just more and more stuff to figure
Yes.
out and organize and listen to. So I'm not quite sure how many people will come on today. It's on my side now. All right, so Marita, we're going to be talking about the archetypes, Roger Moore's archetypes today. But before we get into the subject, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? We've obviously done EMF, but what brought you to EMF? What brought you here today?
What brought me to EMF was a life event that happened to me that led me to the personal development journey. And then my main goal at the beginning was to be a better example of my two children. I have two boys, 5 and 7 years old. And I just wanted to give them the very best version that I can be as a mom to them, so I can raise them to be honest, good men, well behaved, to have the sense of freedom through life and so on. And then the other thing was to unleash my full potential, be the best version of me for myself first, and to make one of my dreams at that time, biggest dreams, through, like traveling the world and experiencing more. This was, yeah, at the very beginning of the course. And then, of course, I got much more at the end.
Sounds like you have an exciting life. It must have got more exciting since you did EMF, and you went to Tenerife too with the group, didn't you?
Yes, yes.
I would
For
love
me,
to have been there.
Yes, actually, this was really very unique experience. And I can honestly say I still am processing all the all the feelings, all the connections, all the love I felt. And meeting the people in person can never be replaced with anything. Feeling this vibe, positive energy, and unconditional love and connection. This was like the most exciting, extraordinary time of my life. Yes.
I
And
didn't
meeting
go.
Peter as
And meeting
well
Peter
in
Sage.
person.
I
Yes.
didn't go, but I watched the first day on YouTube. They ran a training, so they had the
Yes,
first day was
I was
live on
there.
YouTube.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's amazing. I did Tony Robbins many years ago, a couple of decades ago. And when you have a group of positive people that are motivated, there's a lot of energy. It's just this group consciousness almost that starts to it sort of helps you evolve. It helps you develop just that energy of being around like-minded people. It's but it came across on the YouTube, which was quite interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
Quite interesting for me. Maybe I'll do another one. There's lots of courses. I think there's a course coming. There's a training coming up in Croatia. There's training coming up in Cyprus. But anyway, that's enough about EMF.
Yeah.
So
yes.
part of EMF, it's actually a course. It's a 6-month course, and one of the different, and there's 13, 14 modules in it, so there's quite a lot of work. I mean, 12 months sounds like 6 months sounds like a lot of time, but it's actually there's a lot of work to do in that time. But one of the modules, and we're going to talk about that today, is the archetypes that we all have within us. And I just wanted to, I'll just get a little bit of a background, and then we'll talk about the archetypes a bit more in depth. So it was Carl Jung that was looking into the psychology of man, and he and Freud as well. They formulated this concept of the conscious, the personal, the personal conscious and the unconscious, the subconscious, having driving parts. And they in Carl Jung first used the word archetype, and his archetypes are the persona, the self, the animus, the ego, the animus, and the anima. And that's quite sort of psychological talk, where in what we're going to talk about, Roger Moore looked at what Jung did, and he brought it down into 4 archetypes. And these archetypes, there's something that they're concepts that we all hold within ourselves, masculine and feminine. So everybody holds a masculine and feminine part. Males tend to have more dominant masculine parts, and women have more dominant feminine parts. And that's a generalization. But we have both parts to us. I've just got to admit, Karen. And we have both parts to us with these archetypes. And as when we're very young, we're immature, we have these archetypes, we have these immature archetypes. And as we develop, evolve, grow older, through life experience, we start to evolve into these 4 main archetypes. And these archetypes are not something that's from the West. These archetypes have been found through all sorts of cultures, whether it's a woman sitting having coffee in London, or it's a guy in the Amazon rainforest. We still have these archetypes. And one of the bases is the hero's journey. The hero's journey, as we go through it, we start to evolve these archetypes. So, Marita, can you tell us about the 4 archetypes? There's a few others, but the main 4 archetypes we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, of course. So
you can go over them, yeah?
Yes, very briefly. So we have the 4 archetypes. The first one I would mention is the warrior archetype. This is more connected to the masculine energy. And this is basically the archetype that is acting out of courage, and he's achieving stuff. And as we have this separation for to me, by me, through me, as me, he is the master of by me, achieving things. And it's oriented around this, like you give him a task or her a task, and they just are concentrated on this, how they can achieve it. And main characteristic is the courage to do this. Of course, in today's life, also a lot of women has this warrior archetype in the corporate world. As an example, I also work in a technical position among many men. And I need to achieve stuff every day with the team, with the customers. So this helps me a lot when I deep dive in this. And if you want to add something shortly, or I can just go on.
We'll just go on. We'll just do the 4 archetypes now, and then we'll sort of go discuss, go a bit further. Yeah.
Yes. Then we have the magician archetype. And this is like people that do art, entrepreneurs, visionaries. They act like in this magician archetype. And they are masters of the non-physical. And they associate more with their inner world rather than the outer world. Here, the magician can just detach from the outside and play in his inner imagination or inner creativity or whatever it is. And it's very good to detach from the outside drama of the world. And this is, of course, also something that is very useful to acknowledge, to step in when needed. But basically, this is shortly the archetype of the magician. Then we have the lover. And this is characterized more as the feminine energy, and it is as a guiding thought. Love is not the absence of fear, but basically love is the separation of it. This is from Joe Dispenza. I really like this thought. And the lover is actually closest to the state of as me. This is the last state. Those are people that are very connected to the ultimate source of the universe, which is the unconditional love. And many people, we had this at the very beginning of DMF, around 6 or 7. They just changed this connection, this type of unconditional love, receiving from the parents first. And they got conditioned by their parents, by the society, by school, and whatever comes their way. So here the characteristics are like connection, harmony, to have feelings around negative feelings that might rise. And the fourth one is the sovereign. And the sovereign actually is the one that is equal to, let's say, the king or the queen. They lead, they're leaders, and they have a connection to their higher self. They also rise above the drama of the everyday or the situation. Yeah, the connection keeps dropping. Okay. So
Karen's
yeah.
insane on a
Okay. I saw her video. It was terrific. So he has the ability to lead by vision, the sovereign, as the king or the queen, and also can acknowledge all of the other 3 archetypes and accept them for who they are, which is actually a very good characteristic to have, or like ability to have, because yeah, many people just judge on many situations, words that were said, and of course everyone can work on this on all archetypes. And basically he has no good opinion of other people, doesn't matter, and he governs, and he's very wise and independent. Like when a decision needs to be taken, he is taking the leadership and is good in doing what is right in the circumstance that needs to be laid. And yeah, those are basically the 4 archetypes. We have all of them inside of us. Some of them are leading, some of them not, depending on many things, past experiences or even current experiences, but getting to know those in depth can give us, and mastering the balanced one, the balanced part of the archetypes, can give us a lot of power leading our life daily, even in our relationship.
I was just gonna point out the archetypes are not a personality test. You can't, you can see sort of you could do a test to see which one's your dominant one, but it's not something that we can use to create a personality test around it. Myers-Briggs is probably the closest it comes to it, but that was never Carl Jung's intention or Robert Moore's intention either. Yeah, so the sovereign, the warrior, the magician, and the lover. I think we all have them within us. And when something happens, one of them will come to the fore. So most of the time, because we're walking around asleep, most people, they go into their warrior mode. They don't think about it, they just react. Or
Yes.
they tend to hide away as a lover, or they sort of skirt around, come up with the interesting, funny ideas, like the magician, and or they will be the sovereign. They'll be the one that sort of takes control of the situation. So, but I think with the archetypes, for me, it depends on the environment, the situation, which one will come to the fore. We all have tendencies. So Karen was just saying there that she tends to be the magician. I think one of the things I just wanted to say there was that while these are all masculine sounding, warrior, lover, magician, sovereign, we have animus and anima within us. So we have both the masculine and the feminine within us. Women tend to, I'm generalizing, tend to have more of the animus is a dominant group. So eventually Robert Moore came up with the 4 feminine archetypes, which are the mother, the Amazon, obviously the warrior. The mother is the sovereign, the equivalent of the sovereign. Harisha is the lover, Amazon's the warrior, and then the medial woman is the magician. Now the thing is that these 4 archetypes, that the 4 feminine archetypes, have the same attributes, exhibit the same tendencies as the male one. So it would be confusing to separate the two. So when I say, or when we say warrior, we're meaning the masculine warrior, but also the feminine warrior, the Amazon. As you were saying, in business and the corporate world especially, and I see a lot in British government, women in government tend to step into their Amazon mode. And that works against them, in my opinion. It works against them because what it does is men can fight, males, the masculine side of men can fight a warrior, because you've got 2 warriors and they're fighting. And that's what men like, because they're more comfortable in their warrior mode. Most women aren't, but they think to succeed, they have to step into their Amazon mode. And the power that women have, I think the power that women have is recognizing that there are times when they need it. You know, if something's happening with your children, then your child, then obviously you need to be able to step into the Amazon mode. But it's not the way to win, especially against the man, because the man knows how to do that. If you come in as the magician or the lover or the sovereign, men are a little bit more, I need to find another archetype to step into, and that confuses them a bit. So how else do you think this sort of might come up in day-to-day behavior? I was just talking there about women in business or politics tend to step into the Amazon because that's what they think they have to do. But what other ways do you see the archetypes appearing in society? Well, so the listeners, and this, if you're on Facebook now, how might they see the warrior come up within themselves? Because I'll notice their reactions. How might it come up in life, just general life, these archetypes?
Actually, I can speak for myself, for what I have observed from the knowledge I have. So, first of all, outside the corporate world, I, as a man, need to be the lover, of course, the magician for my
and the warrior and the Amazon
and the warrior, when needed. Same in work. Actually, I'm not only the sovereign or the warrior, and it's depending on the person, actually. And as you mentioned, the sovereign is, I think, the most hard to get archetype, maybe in the balanced way, because it acknowledges, it governs all 3 of them, the other 3. And the warrior, it is very interesting because it's very easy to step in the now state, to achieve, to do this on, like, stepping on others, their feelings, whatever, and losing this lover part of us or magician part of us. And actually, we should never forget all 4 of them. And going into the deep dive of those, this is a work in progress. also I myself work now on this. And what I can mention for me is I was more in the lover and magician, and of course at work warrior and the sovereign. I'm now mastering the sovereign, like to accept everybody for who they are, to not react right away. This was also in connection with our module for mastering emotions. And this is really powerful, just to hold space for people, to learn to listen actively to them, to respond in a way that they feel heard. So yeah, this topic is really, really very vast as knowledge and
I think
everything.
it's quite hard to be a warrior all the time. Another module that we do
Yeah,
is levels of consciousness, and I'm doing a
yes,
talk about it this Saturday actually. But the levels of consciousness, you have by me and through me. So through me is conscious leadership. By me is what we tend to do, and by me is doing things, and that's what the warrior does. And if you're the warrior
yes,
all day, if you have to go to work all day, and you're fighting all the time to get things done, it gets quite exhausting.
yes,
And I think the big thing about the EMF course and what we're talking about is that most people are not aware of this. They just go to
yes,
work. They perceive at work because they're a manager that they have to start, chasing people and pushing, and
yes,
everything is by me. Everything is, I have to do all this stuff. And they go home, I always remember years ago when I worked in business. You come to your holidays and you go on holiday and you get a headache, or you get sick for the first, or you get a cold for the first couple of days of your holiday. It's almost as the body's sort of like, we're in this warrior mode, we're in this Amazon mode, everything's doing, I have to be aware and I have to be ready to fight. And then you consciously go, oh, we're on holiday, and your unconscious body goes, oh, we're on holiday. And then all the
yes,
problems come, all the physical problems come out, and you get ill for a couple of days. So you relax. It's really important to, well, first of all, wake up to recognize what you're actually doing, because if you're at work as a warrior and you're fighting all day, you're arguing, you've got to cover your corner, you're always making sure people are getting their KPIs done, and the business is done, and you're chasing suppliers and that, and then you go home. You need to be able to recognize that there's no point in taking your warrior through the front door, because your partner will be there, and that's not a good relationship.
yes,
So, but we all do that. I remember a great story. It's a metaphor. It's a fable, if you like, where this guy he started work for a new company, and he was working with one of his colleagues, who was a little bit of a warrior, but it was a little bit more in touch with his lover and his magician as well. But he invited him around to dinner. So this new guy went round to dinner with this guy, and they talked about work and what was happening, and the pressures, and it was basically work. And then they got out of the car, and the guy they was taking him to his home to meet the family and have dinner. He went up to this tree, and he sat there for a minute and just rubbed the leaves of the trees. And the guy said, "Oh, so why are you doing that?" And his response was, "I'm bringing all my stuff home from work, my warrior mode or whatever it was, but I'm leaving it on the tree, because there's no
yeah,
point me having that mode, that archetype, that thinking to walk into the
yes,
house, because that's not what I want to take home to my family."
yes,
And I remember that story because it's we tend to we tend to take our stuff with us wherever we go, and we react to the environments around us, but we don't react fast enough to going home, and we bring all that stuff with us. In the warrior mode, we step into the house, our partner, the kids, the children are not going to be happy if we go into warrior mode. So I think
yes.
that's a big part of it, is recognize the impact that these can have. So that's the warrior. But what sort of impact do you think the others can have? The magician, the lover. The lover's not necessarily, we think here about an intimate relationship with the person, but what
Yeah,
we're talking about with an archetype, it's a concept that a person will step into. Feminine energy has more access to that lover mode. And I think that's being a bit sexist, because there's lots of men that
yes,
have access to that. It's just sadly in society, it's not, in today's society, it's not good to show that. But it's essentially humans are all about relationships. Well, you're not going to have a good relationship if you're in the warrior mode. You're not going to have a great relationship if you're in the sovereign mode, because you have two sovereigns who are going to fight each other.
Yes. Yeah.
So even males have to be able to touch into that lover mode.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean having an intimate relationship. That's just in the
Yeah.
type of relationship we have. So what sort of impacts do you think these archetypes would have just in life?
Yeah, actually, the ability to build the magician archetype and to step into your inner world is very powerful. I still remember the realization I had after the first module, Bringing Reality. I was somehow always governed by the outer world, my emotions. And then this
That's
was so
normal.
big for me. Yeah. And I said, wow. And to have
Yep.
the ability to step inside you uh, and yeah, just observe your inner world and give from your inner world to the outside world is a very big thing to have.
And it's
So
self-development. The first part of self-development for me is self-awareness.
yes,
And it's like,
yeah.
wow,
So
okay.
yeah, in the context of my experience, this was a big realization. Uh, and yeah, I was always
So
playful,
before
creative,
that, what
intuitive.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
before that, what would be your archetype? And now that you have a little bit more self-awareness and the self-development, and you're still on that journey, it's not something you switch on and switch
Yes.
off, it's life.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
how do you think your archetype relationships changed within you?
Actually, the thing that's changed is that I'm, as you said, more aware when they should appear, how they should appear. This is a very big realization. Before, I just was acting out of emotion, whatever archetype comes up front. So it was more like governed by emotion, which is never a good thing.
Yes.
So yeah, I had all of them. I'm a very creative person. I like to dream, to travel. Also, I can be a warrior, do stuff. Right now, it was also very negative for the people around me because not everybody is a warrior when they need to be, like in the same way that I am. And once my manager said, "You done fantastic, but you pushed this girl and she is kind of very low now, blah, blah." So yeah, now I learned to be more sovereign also at work because my position is also a level 2 with team, with customers. I do trainings. So I definitely learned to step into the right archetype when needed. And I am more aware when I should act like a lover, magician, sovereign, or warrior. And I use them both for personal and at work, personal life and work life. And this is really powerful, this realization, this deep dive, and this awareness. And it
I
takes time,
was
work.
absolutely. And I think the first part for me is that self-awareness.
Yes,
And I almost third position myself. So that's another session module that we do on EMF. But to third position myself and observe myself in a relationship. So if I'm talking to somebody, or I have a subordinate, or my partner, or I'm talking to my wife, observing what I'm doing, what
yeah,
what archetypes can be. Is this the best archetype? So it's all really about self-awareness because the archetypes are there within us. This isn't something that Roger Moore dreamed up in the 50s or the 60s. This is the hero's journey, and it goes right back to the Iliad and early Greek times. And it could be somebody in London, it could be somebody in the Amazon rainforest.
yeah,
It's inherent in humanity, but most of us are just not aware. It's that it's that self-awareness of what's coming up, and I think the big thing is becoming self-aware, and the next step would be actually, is this the right archetype? And I work with I coach a couple of people that have done EMF, And we work on what archetypes, who do I need to be to go into this situation? So one of them is works with quite a big company in Asia, and she goes into meetings and she takes the archetypes with her. This is who I need to be. Now, business meetings, generally the warrior is not the best character to go in with, which can be quite, because it can be quite confrontational. There's going to be lots of people in the meeting that are unsure. They might be in a bit more in their lover mode. It's not like we have one archetype running. We have different levels running simultaneously. So if you go in as a warrior and you start shouting or slamming your fist on the desk, you might get results, but they won't be the results you want. And in your case there, you got the results, but you didn't get the relationship, because the woman that was working with you was possibly in her lover mode more, or so it didn't work for her. So it's really powerful to be able to recognize the archetypes you have within you, and then be able to step in and this is the archetype I need to go in with. That's not to say that warriors not necessary at times, because we still have to meet demands. There's still at the end of the month requirements, figures that we have to reach, and then with your children, you have to make sure that they understand right and wrong. So there's a balance. I suppose the big thing with any of this is actually being the sovereign. But I in my experience in training quite a few EMF clients and EMF people and other people as well, what I've recognized is that the sovereign is not necessarily an archetype that you can easily step into, because a big part of the sovereign is experience. And if you're 21, you haven't had as much experience as someone older, someone maybe 31 or 41 or 51 like me. So the sovereign, one of the things that I've found that sits with the sovereign is mentorship. People that are mentors tend to be very much in their sovereign. And the sovereign is not someone who's into their ego. They're not someone who's pushing. They're someone that's having that empowerment relationship with another person. And to be able to step into a sovereign. So I've trained in the last year about 50 people looking at their different archetypes. None of them, and they're sort of 30 to 40. One or two might be in the 50s, but mostly 30 to 40. None of them had the sovereign as the dominant archetype. I found that quite fascinating, because when you're even having that conversation, or you're which sovereign am I comfortable stepping into? The sovereign isn't the go-to. It's the lover or the magician, and we don't. They're not black and white. There's obviously there's a balance between the three in different situations, in different environments. I think the big thing is that people, when they get attacked, tend to go into warrior mode, just because that's the way that they defend themselves. And but the magician is the fascinating one. The magician. I worked in hospitality for a long time at very high 6-star level. And when I was interviewing chefs, if a chef came out with a standard menu and he answered all the questions, I would tend not to hire him, because for me at that level, 6-star, I want a chef that's a magician. I want a chef that can produce the food. He's not going to turn out something that's horrible, but he's always looking at different things. We went into with somewhere in Italy. And he went ashore. The chef went ashore, and he was, I think it was a fish meal, but he went past the florist. I said, "Oh, what can I do here?" So he told me he was in the florist. He's like, "Oh, they're edible, they're edible, they're edible." So the guests on the boat had this fish meal, which would have been amazing in itself, but it was covered in edible flowers. So that was a chef who knew his trade really well, but really had access to his magician. So that's just it's sort of another fascinating. I've worked with a lot of chefs. I'm not a chef. I tend to manage front office and then I'm aware of the kitchen. But another chef I worked with was incredible. He used to do I can't remember the name of the dessert. It's the one where it's like it's a baked Alaska, that's right. And
Uh-huh.
what he would do is he would shape it like a volcano, and then he would
Uh-huh.
have when it went out to the guests on the table, the middle of that dish, so it would be about that high, and it was shaped like a, in the middle was hollowed out, and he would pour the brandy in it. And so what they would do is they would light the brandy as they're taking it to the table. Now his even better because obviously I'm a little bit of a magician as well. So I quite liked what he used to do. We would go past Stromboli. Stromboli is one of the active volcanoes off Italy in the Caribbean, in the Mediterranean. And so what we were trying to do is to bring this baked Alaska flames, flowing out the top and rolling down the sides of this baked Alaska as we went past this volcano. It was that's really stepping into your magician. There's a little bit of coordination, there's a little bit of the sort of warrior making sure that the boat's in the right place, but the
Yeah.
actual whole effect, because the guests don't see all the stuff that's happening behind the scenes, they just see the
Yes.
presentation. So yeah, for me, having a chef that's a magician was really important in that particular position. If you're working in a restaurant, I'd like to still have to be a bit the magician there, but you're stepping more into the warrior because in a restaurant, I worked in a restaurant at a hotel. We had a 50-seater restaurant. You've got to get the meals out, so you
Yeah.
have to step into your warrior mode there a bit. You want to sort of be able to express a bit of flair, but
Yeah.
you're more in your warrior mode. Um, that's
I know
my
this.
experience
Uh,
of different archetypes.
yes. I actually worked when I started in Germany in Heidelberg. I work as a waitress and also I looked after children. And yeah, being also in this area of guests and serving people. And yeah, you need to be the warrior. And of course, you need to be also creative and loving to the people, especially to Germans. And because in Bulgaria it's quite different, even though, yeah, it's just different culture. And yeah, I was just experiencing the same, also very interesting. We had actually what you mentioned when we were serving ice cream in a bowl, and we have always put this that you use for New Year. I forgot the word in English. This little fire sticks,
Oh, okay. Yes.
and we used to
Sparklers.
put them and fire this up just before you serve that. So everybody, no matter where you work, what relationship you have with partner or kids or whatever, whoever this is, yeah, every little bit of the archetypes is so important because we should never forget that we are all humans. We are made of the same dough, and no matter what the situation is, we need to be humans first and give value unconditional love. This is one of the other things that I learned, to love myself first. And I was a very giving person, and I am still, but I never love myself really, truly. And this is
They're
the
really
other big
important.
realization. Yeah, yeah.
Really
Also in the
important.
context, yeah, of relationships, the first thing that I remembered after hearing the straight talk for intimate relationships was two C's never make the no. And you need to be whole to be able to give to your partner, to your kids, to your colleagues, whoever this is. And
I, I,
yeah,
I'm working in business with business teams, the conscious leaders. So I realized years ago that you have a board, you have the managers and leaders, and they're quite different things. And
yes,
but to be a leader, you need to be able to be a conscious leader, you need to be self-aware enough to know, okay, what my archetypes are doing, when I need to bring that archetype in. But then also, and that's internal, but then also recognize what's happening externally. Because if you have a
yes,
team that works for you, so you're in charge of a team, so you're managing a team, you want the best out of all of them.
yes.
And
And they are
it might
different.
be that and they're different, but you want the best out of each one of
Yes,
them. And some of them but then you have to encourage that lover in the person to come out in the context of the job that you've got to do.
Yeah.
And then also being able to get the person that's more magician, to get them to step out of to get them to be comfortable expressing that archetype.
Yes.
Because and that sort of ties in with the conditional unconditional love. If you can't love yourself, you don't want to express yourself. You want to keep it sort of suppressed. So you want
Yes.
to fit in, and then you become a robot. You become part of the
Yes.
system, and then your group isn't going to perform. You're not going to have that teamness about it.
Yes.
And really, with the team, you want the team, a team that's working is going to respect everyone else in the team, themselves first, but everybody else in the team, and be able to express themselves and be able to acknowledge and respect the other person for their talents and being able to express this. And yeah, and it's their uniqueness, being able to express that uniqueness, being able to be comfortable bringing that archetype up for however that relationship, that project, whatever that team is going to work, to be able to get all those parts to fit in. And for me, that of course brings in the sovereign, to be able to do that. The sovereign, the leader speaks last, as Covey says. And that's the sovereign being able to not be able to, it's giving the space for everybody to be able to express themselves. And that's such that's such a better place for a team to be. You still have to perform, you still have figures, but I think then that is the sovereign comes into setting the vision, so that everybody in the team understands the vision, and it's part of they're not paying it lip service. It's part of who they are. They are part of the system. They're part of, sorry, not the system. They're part of the vision. But to be part of the vision, how do they fit into it? And that's allowing them to express their archetype.
This is something that we can teach managers on, because my personal experience shows that a lot of them are mostly the warrior. And what you just mentioned is very important, to be the leader, real leader, to be the example, to hold space for the people. And when you were speaking, I thought of something. I was always on my very first job as well, a trainer with small teams, a supervisor now as well throughout the years. And I train people. I work with customers with complex situations, cases, whatever. And I was always doing unconsciously, giving value, giving love, or just putting the people in the right environment of conversation to pull up the best of them. And now I can even better master this with the knowledge that we have.
Well, of course, it makes your life easier as the manager.
Yeah,
if you're in your sovereign, because it's hard if you're managing and you're fighting people, you're pushing people, you're trying to get them to meet their figures, and they're stressed, and basically it puts the system under stress.
Yeah.
And I think for me, the self-development, the self-awareness, there's more than 60% of people in hospitals are there because of lifestyle choices or lifestyle diseases. And it's predominantly stress. And it's not like
nowadays.
It's stress isn't something you sort of switch on and it's like, oh, I'm going to have a heart attack, or I'm going to whatever. It's that little drip over 5, 10, 15 years. And it's just that low level stress. It's in the background. It's what I was saying there. You get to your holidays, and the first couple of days of your holidays, you have a headache, or you get a cold, because your body's like, there's no stress, I can relax. So your unconscious goes into relax, the body goes into relax, and you get ill, because then it's sort of, it's got to fix all the other parts of it, and it catches a bug, or it's really, and people are becoming, I think the important part now in the 21st century, and in COVID, I think has accelerated this, that people are becoming more aware of this situation isn't working for me. So people are really sort of, I don't want to go to work. I want to work from home, which is actually more stressful. But they want to work from home because they don't like the environment that they're in at work. So people are becoming more aware of this, and they're looking to
Yes.
self-development. And I'm really, really grateful that I ran into Peter Sage. Peter Sage is somebody I met 20 years ago. But the package,
Wow.
the EMF package that he's got together, and I've done Tony Robbins and
Yes.
some of the other guys that don't come to mind right at the moment. And you know, what he's doing is the content isn't that different, but it's the structure of it.
Yes.
So it takes 6 months. You know, you can't change. Tony Robbins says you can change your habit in a moment, but you can't change it long term. You could sort of get out of the bad mood you're going to get into a good mood, but you're going to get back into the bad mood because you haven't changed the environment. You haven't changed whatever it is holding you in there.
Yeah.
And the way that it works, the way EMF works with Peter, is that he goes through these modules which slowly builds us up, because, you know, you're not trying to master your emotions and that's it. That's part of it. But how does that affect the relationships? And then what we're talking about with the archetypes here, okay, this is how I present to the world. The world's a mirror. So my inside, what's happening inside, is being reflected outside. So if I'm always stressed, angry, in my warrior mode, I'm going to bounce off people and I'm going to piss them off and they're going to go into their warrior mode.
Yes.
And going back to English-British politics, you see the women are warriors, and they're fighting in a masculine will, because, you know, most of politicians are male. And that's the way that they think they have to function. And they end up with stress. And when you're young, when you're 20, 25, maybe you can handle the stress and you can push it and you can,
Yes.
you know, go home on the weekend and do a marathon. But when you get to 35, it's like, no, there's more to this. This is just, and people, I think the one of the things that came out of COVID was the fact that we're social creatures. We want to have relations with other people at different levels, and unless the workplace is less stressful, if we go into the workplace and there's stress, we're not going to have that social connection. There's going to be a connection. It's not going to be the best connection. It's just so important now, I think, for leaders to step up. It's fascinating. 10 years ago, I was running a leadership course, and we're like, okay, so especially for males, who are the people that we could aspire to, or who are the people that we could look up as mentors? And you've got Nelson Mandela, maybe Barack Obama. But today it's like, well, Trump, no, okay, no, Boris Johnson, maybe not.
It's not
okay,
for everybody.
I can't remember the American.
Take both.
So
yeah,
at that level, and leaders don't have to be, you know, leading the country. They can be, you know, they can be a mum looking after the children. There's no profession that you have to be a leader in. But I think now, since COVID, people are becoming more aware of the stress, the fear that created, these stress that we're under, and they're starting to look at this personal development more. They're starting to what is out there, and that's pretty much the point of my podcast, is to point people in directions. What we do is with Peter Sage, but there is other training, there is other self-development you can do out there. But as a leader, as a manager, even, you have to recognize that the people that you employ, especially the younger generation, the millennials coming through, people in their 30s, they're looking to this more and more. And if you're not running it as a manager, you're going to lose people. You're going to see this turnover. I worked in Myanmar for 10 years, and where I was in a hospitality setting for 2 years. A different environment, different pressures, but we had no staff turnover, which in that country is unheard of. 6 months is a long time. There's lots of other stresses. There's lots of other strains in that system, but it's so important that you minimize the staff turnover. And because people are becoming more self-aware, that as a leader, you step up. How can you do that? You actually have to be sort of a step ahead of them. You really have to be looking at the self-development so that you can become aware of yourself, how you present to the world. And then I think the leaders are the ones that take that the next step, which is, how can I get the best out of other people? How can I support them individually? And it doesn't need to be a half hour, you know, sort of, you might do that once every 3 months, where you do a half hour appraisal assessment. It can be
It's every day, every minute.
it can
Yeah.
be, absolutely, it can be a comment. It's who you're
Yeah.
being. We have to get out of this doing mode, this by me mode. Everything, I have to push everything into this through me mode where this is who I am. I'm
Yeah.
the guy that goes and there's rubbish, especially because I have a dog. But if I'm on the road and there's glass, then I'll put it in the rubbish bin. I'm not looking for accolades or validation or anyone to say well done. That's just who I am. So
Yeah.
it's who we present to the world. It's a big
Yeah.
it's a big step, but I think leaders or the older generation, the managers, the managers of the world, if they don't get this, they're going to suffer. And the first way is staff turnover, and there's high turnover at the moment because people are they're looking elsewhere.
Yeah.
Where do I feel comfortable? It's not about the money anymore. I want a lifestyle.
Yeah.
I need the money, but I'm not going to kill myself and I have a heart attack at 50 if I have 100,000
Yeah.
or $1 million in the bank. There's no point. So I need to sort of money, but lifestyle as well.
I still remember after Christmas, we began in October with the course. And I said to myself, one of the things that was like a New Year resolution was to achieve the state that I'm not stressed at work. And I, at some point, achieved this to the point that I was so relaxed that I just was, wow, is this me or is this normal? It was
But you were
such
still
a
getting the
interesting
results.
experience. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I can do a lot of things also
So
simultaneously,
I
which
think
is not a good thing, but yeah. And I just said to my
yeah.
master group, we had a little group, Power Minds, and I said, okay, I have changed, but it is so like 36 degrees that I cannot recognize myself. Am I in lethargy or what is happening? It was very, very unique experience, but it feels much better, of course.
And you're more relaxed, so you're not as stressed. What's interesting is
Yeah,
that
it was, yeah.
when you
I put
change,
the
the people
intention.
around you change.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing changes until you change.
But you have to change yourself first. But it's
Exactly.
really important that this isn't going into a relaxed mode where you're not meeting your KPIs, you're not meeting your figures at the end of the month. You still have to meet those. There's better ways of doing it. I think the archetypes are a
Yeah,
really strong way of recognizing who you are and who you need to be. So yeah, recognizing who you are and who you need to be, and then who other people are, and getting the best out of everybody. And in theory,
yes,
you should actually get better results. That you'll have happier
yeah,
people and you won't have the turnover.
definitely. Yeah. I'm happy to
Anyway,
work in a team when I'm acknowledged, the people are acknowledged, and this is very unique, very unique. I can experience this also every day.
it's a bit sad that it's unique. It should be, and hopefully it'll change for lots of people. But anyway, we've
Yeah,
come to the end of our time. So thank you,
yeah.
Marita. Is there any closing statement you'd like to say? If people would like to talk to you, it'll be on your Facebook shortly. I'll send it across to you, and it's on my
Yes,
Facebook.
I have a Facebook page, and also I post my stuff there on Instagram,
Cool.
and I will be having also a Facebook web page, and I do have an email to use to contact me. Yeah, I
Excellent.
can say a lot actually. We can
But how
talk
can
for
that?
hours.
We only have 50 minutes. I know, and this is just one little part. We haven't. There's a whole other part of archetypes that we haven't even touched on yet. Yes, it
Yes.
is. It is so important. But what's the easiest way for people to get in touch with you? If they Marita Vandiva on Facebook, they'll come to you.
Yeah, they can join my group or send me an email. I have a special email for the Elite Mentorship Forum, and they also can call me on LinkedIn. I do have my phone number. So yeah, any way is okay for me. And
No
I am
problem.
glad to help now more and more people every day that I meet my colleagues, my children, my ex, my mom, my dad. So it's really fascinating.
It's what I was saying. You have to change yourself, and then when you do change yourself, the
Mhm.
people around you change.
Yes.
Fascinating. All right, Marisa, been lovely talking to you. And this
Thank
is
you
John
so
Farrell on
much for
the.
inviting me, John.
No problem. It was great having you on. Maybe we'll have you on again when we talk about the second part of archetypes, but
Exactly.
sometime. All right, lovely talking to you. Thanks so much,
Thank you
everybody.
so much, everybody.
Thanks.
Have a
Bye. This is
fabulous day. Bye.
the thinking part of life. We'll see you same time, 9 a.m. next week, 9 a.m. British time next week on this channel or on this Zoom call. Thanks a lot. Bye.